Okay, so I had a kind of an interesting day. Had a good trade, but some crazy stuff happened. Well, like always, what I do, first thing I do when I come into trading is looking for, okay, what's the market doing on a larger time frame? So we're currently looking at the NASDAQ futures, and on this left, I'm looking at a 15-minute chart, and I'm just seeing, okay, where is it, making key levels? Where are the big bounces in the market? Okay, so there's a big bounce here. It's unlikely we get all the way down there. And so it's pretty choppy coming into today. There's just kind of micro levels here. Going into a 5-minute, you can see, okay, there's kind of a double top here. Maybe we do something when we come up here, and the market's kind of bouncing here as well. And the the S&P 500 futures were kind of the same. And so looking at a 1-minute chart now, here is the trade I entered in, and you can see from when the market opened over here at like 6:30, is the market was just really back and forth. Based on my strategy, I like to wait for, to come up to that level, have a trend break, and then like a nice bearish lower high rate like what we have here. And so I actually decided to not get in, even though this signal kind of popped up right here for me, is because the market was just not great. If I pull up a chart of the actual S&P 500 futures, they were even worse. And so just looking at this, there was no movement in the S&P 500 futures before it had this breakup to where I jumped into a trade. And so I was just trying to stay out. I wanted to, when the market's like this, I like to see, okay, I want to see some kind of bigger movement where the market breaks these highs. And if you look kind of at a larger time frame chart, breaking these highs right here makes it look like, okay, we could bust higher. Like overall, I would say this is pretty bullish, I think. We've kind of come down here and bottomed a little bit. And so we might continue higher. And so I think that's going to get a lot of people long potentially. And so for me, what I wanted to see to get short here was I wanted to see the market slow down. And so I needed to see, and so, there's a first couple big rejection red candlesticks right here that I would have FOMO'd into in my younger days trading. And so what I was really looking at was I wanted to see, I felt like the S&P 500 futures were a little stronger. And so they had an uptrend right here. I wanted to see that uptrend broken, which it did. And then I wanted to see it make a lower high that was a little more stronger. And so here it kind of made that lower high. And so to quickly just zoom back in this recording where I entered in was basically when I missed the entry a little bit. I would have liked to get in at the close, kind of right here as this broke. And so I just put, I knew the market was choppy, and I just put a limit order and hoped that the market came back and filled me, and it did. And so I initially thought, okay, this was a nice rejection bar to get in on. But again, I wanted to wait for that confirmation of it making a lower high like it did here. And then the market just started to play out from there. And so my initial scare with this was that it was going to come down here and bounce off of this previous high that we have over here. And so that was my initial scare. And I think that was the first hurdle to get into. And so I waited to move to break even until my plan to move to break even was once it kind of gives up this. Once it kind of has given up this move up and filled that, I'm okay moving to break even. It's started to work how I want, and I want to take the risk off the table. And another thing is, right now I'm only half size. One thing I'm starting to practice with is taking half size when I'm not as confident in the market. I think that you don't need to be trading full size all the time. Another thing I'm working on is scaling in, and so I'm adding in all these other styles, and so that makes trading a little bit more complicated. And so I feel like I've been trying to turn my wheels a little bit lately. And so, but the whole reason why is because I wasn't confident in the overall market. It was pretty back and forth. I thought, okay, maybe we go all the way down here, or, we just come here, or, this market's really bullish and it just breaks out and I take a loss. And so I'd rather be half size. And again, if I'm wrong and it goes in my favor, great, I'll still take a win. At half size, this is still good money, right? And once you start scaling up, it gets more and more. And so at this point, once it moved down here, I moved to break even. And then the thought was, okay, this looks really solid. And I was trying to just let it play out, because in the back of my mind, it's okay, the market's flush and good right here. But again, I have to remember it is been choppy. And so it might need a little bit more wiggle room. And so once it kind of had this pullback and broke lower, I, moved my stop again to kind of capture. This was about 1x. And generally how I manage is once it hits about 3x, I like to tighten things up a bit, because at the end of the day, going for an average of 3x really works for me. And you don't know what the market's going to do, right? And so another thing to manage is I like to look, okay, here's a downtrend. You can see I'm drawing that on the chart. And right here, it's, this is scary. I'm thinking, okay, I need it to hold this downtrend. It's either going to, fail and knock me out at 1x, which kind of sucks because that's not that big of a win, or it continues lower here. And so it ended up barely holding. And so initially my thought is, okay, why don't I just move it down to here? But I thought, what's the point of taking this much risk off the table when I have definitely seen times where it'll just do this and it'll barely make a newer high like it actually does here, which is kind of wild. And then it pukes lower from there. And so then I moved my stop to here. And then once we kind of broke down to 3x, I trailed my stop up a little tighter. I thought, this is a big move down. We've broken that downtrend. And so my thought is, the downtrend's broken. It might start to find some strength here. And so I moved my stop here and got knocked out. And so to show you what ended up happening, so this is my actual chart, and this is where I got out, right? And the market then just puked lower from there, and I down here is like 4 or 5x. And so I probably would have got out somewhere here, and that's how it goes, right? It sucks. I definitely have that where there's times where you have a plan and you have an idea, and then in the moment you slightly change it. And I think I definitely did that here with being, okay, I'm giving the market wiggle room, I'm letting it have pullbacks, and I should have just waited for it to have this pullback and then move down to there. But again, it's a little gray because my plan is to tighten up once it hits 3x, and it did that. So at the end of the day, I did follow my plan. But when you see this happen, it sucks. So I definitely went through really briefly how I actually enter in. This is more of a review video of my trade I took today. And so if you want a more detailed explanation of how I actually enter, check out this video right here.